Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Cecile DeGuglielmo. Welcome to a very special edition of the So Much More podcast. I cannot believe that we have reached the 500th episode. When I launched this show almost a decade ago, I really wanted to connect with other people in our industry, with workrooms, upholsterers, other makers. I really, truly never imagined the depth of community we would build. At first, I thought I would interview a few people and our stories would all be the same, and we'd have a couple recorded for posterity, the end. And that is not how this unfolded. The first few times I uploaded a podcast, I literally watched carefully to see how many people were listening. And when the first episode hit 6 downloads, I was beside myself with joy. And then I remembered that 2 of those downloads were me checking to make sure it worked properly. I really, truly had no idea that you would keep tuning in week after week, that you would share your experiences, that you would listen to other people's experiences and learn from them and make decisions based on that. For this milestone, I invited listeners to leave a voicemail on SpeakPipe about how the podcast has affected their lives. I asked 3 simple questions. What's changed you? What challenges did you face? And what ideas stuck with you? The responses were moving and vulnerable. Some of you made me cry. Some of you decided to answer all 3 questions, some just one, but I loved each and every message. And I am so grateful to those of you who felt comfortable leaving a voicemail. And for those of you who did not, I'm sorry that you didn't, but I know that you're out there and you have found other ways to let me know what the podcast means to you. And I even did get one really great email that I'll share with you at the end. So I'm going to play all of the messages back to back so that you can hear not only the diversity of the voices and the experiences at one time, but to hear the sincerity. And then I'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about it. My purpose for collecting the voicemails was to help understand what the podcast meant to listeners or people who had been on the podcast. I didn't want it to be all about me and congratulations to me, but I am so grateful to the people who left messages and said congratulations. It turned out to be very uplifting for me to hear those things. So I'm really grateful. So here are the voicemails that you left for me.
Hi, this is Susan Woodcock in Tryon, North Carolina. And yes, a lot has changed for us after listening to or being on the So Much More podcast. My first interview with you was in August of 2016. And after listening to a lot of episodes with a lot of other workrooms, my husband and I were inspired to open Workroom Tech and create a trade school for custom workroom businesses. So thank you, Seal, for interviewing people in our industry, for promoting our industry, and for inspiring us to start a trade school. And we look forward to many, many more episodes.
Hi, Seal. This is Jennifer from Cocoa, Florida. Congratulations on your 500th episode. In answer to your questions, what changed for me after listening to your podcast is I learned that I had a legitimate business going on, and it was called a custom workroom. I don't know that I would have even known that otherwise. The challenge I was facing at the time was how to turn this little sewing thing I had going on into a legitimate business. And thanks to all your interviews and the information you shared, I have learned how to turn my business into a profitable venture, which I'm very proud of. And the one idea or moment that stayed with me the longest is what a generous giving community the workroom industry is. There is no competition. Everybody helps each other. Everybody wants everyone to succeed, sorry. And to me, that is a very unique and wonderful attribute of this community. So thank you again, and I will keep on listening to your wonderful podcast. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Seal. It's Robin. I've been so inspired by other people's stories, how and why they started in business, what they considered success, and how they handled mistakes, but also what struggles they faced too and how they've overcome them. It made me realize how alike we all are, even though we all have different starting places. Here's my ongoing challenge, I'll call it. I've never been enamored with the business part of our business, but after listening to so many podcasts where the interviewee was so business savvy, it's made me pay much more attention to that portion of what we do. I still don't like it though. One phrase that stayed with me is not defeated, determined. I have it written on a scrap piece of paper taped above my computer, and I can use it in every situation, whether I'm working with a difficult fabric or drafting a pattern, trying to figure out a tricky installation, or just dealing with time, space, or clutter in my workroom. Thank you so much, Seal, for uniting us all through your wonderful podcast. Here's to 500 more.
Hi, Seal. It's Michelle. I just wanted to pop in and celebrate with you. Congratulations. You are amazing. What a milestone. So what changed for me after I started listening was I think I found you kind of right about when I was just starting to network with other upholsterers. I'd really been just alone in my workroom, kind of with blinders on. And I really enjoyed all the people that you've introduced me to. And actually, you introduced me to one that was just about 40 minutes from me. And I had to track her down and make friends with her because I needed that in-person friendship. So, that was awesome. That was really helpful. Let's see. And then you had me on your podcast. So that was great. And I think at that time I was struggling with kind of trying to get a course that I had wanted to do out there, but the techie stuff was just getting me down, and I would try and it just wasn't working. But thankfully I'd had some friends who introduced me, Cynthia introduced me to Jeanelle at the Workroom channel, who was able to help me create a beautiful course. And that was also amazing. And then one moment that stayed with me, the one that I keep thinking of, is not that long ago, you were talking about how you'll procrastinate and put off something that only takes about 10 minutes to do. And I just had to chuckle because I do that all the time. And most of the time I do it around like saying no or setting a boundary. And then I wait until it becomes awkward because I waited so long. So I'm really working on that right now. But again, congratulations.
Hello, Seal. This is Lisa O'Brien with All Things Material in Kentucky. Answering your questions, what changed for me was the podcast made me feel very connected in a new way. It reminded me of what I do in my workroom as part of a much larger business community, and that the sense of belonging meant more to me than I expected. The last question on the challenges, I'm not sure I had any new challenges other than every new project. I evolved a little more and became a better business owner, a better workroom. Otherwise, that's all I have to add. Congratulations. And I look forward to hearing your podcast. Happy New Year.
Teresa from Chesterfield, Virginia. Being on the So Much More podcast was such an honor, and the questions you gave me before our interview, Seal, were thought-provoking and helped me evaluate the direction I was going in. Afterwards, I felt like I had been inducted into this wonderful fabrication family where we help if there's a problem, cheer when there's a success, and reunite at the annual CWC photo. A year ago, after making a family decision that would significantly impact my business, I knew I would have to cut back on the time I could spend working on client projects. I started wondering if my business could still be profitable. Fortunately, after hearing some business owners tackling all sorts of personal issues on various episodes, I was reminded that everyone's business model looks different, and that's okay. Despite each of us serving different sectors and specializing in different areas, the bottom line is that we are all needed. Remembering this gave me the peace and fortitude to remain successful in business during this chaotic and transitional year. Thanks for all you do, Seal. You give us a voice so we can support one another, even if some of your guests have never met. Happy 500th episode.
This is Laura Nelson from West Lafayette, Indiana. The So Much More podcast has been very helpful to me, both professionally and personally. I have learned about so many new tools, books, and methods that there are too many to list. One thought that stays with me after listening to each show is that people are far more similar than we are different. We all have our struggles and different ways of coping with those struggles. Most importantly, I've learned that tradespeople are resilient. Seal, your welcoming personality and interview style helps guests feel at ease, which makes them comfortable to answer questions candidly. There is no judgment or gotcha moments. I was more than a little nervous to have been a guest, but soon the interview felt more like a casual conversation with a good friend. Congratulations, Seal, on this milestone. I look forward to listening to many more episodes for a very long time.
Hi, Seal. This is Jeanelle from Westchester, Pennsylvania. Congratulations. I've had the privilege of being a part of your podcast journey since the very beginning, as a guest, as a sponsor, as a listener, and as one of your biggest fans. And it's been incredible to watch how you've built this community. One moment that has stuck with me is when together we sat down with Marilyn Borchardt to record episode 24, last episode of your first year. I was with Marilyn in her son's living room, and you were remote via Zoom. Hearing Marilyn's story in her voice of how Maffei Drapery Patterns started and grew was such an honor. Learning how the name came to be and how to correctly pronounce it, it's Maffei, not Mfei. Learning about the heart and history behind what she built, that conversation gave me such a profound appreciation for the legacy within our industry. Looking back now, I realize that conversation captured exactly what you do in every single episode. You help us understand the people and passions behind the businesses, not just the what, but the why and the who. That's what grounds us in what really matters. Seal, thank you for creating this space where we can share our stories, learn from each other, and feel connected as an industry. Here's to 500 episodes and many more to come. Bye-bye.
Hi, Seal. Congratulations on your 500th episode. This is what I feel like the 500th time I've had to restart this recording because I keep wanting to say too much. But since our podcast that I did, my biggest challenge was financial and accounting, and I am happy to report that I have kept going and I am really good at my QuickBooks accounting and balancing my checking, savings, and credit card statements every month. Another challenge was writing down and documenting things that I don't do very often so that I have less time reteaching myself when I have to go back and redo them. Was interesting to go back and listen to my podcast because certain things just sounded so silly to me that why I didn't do them before. But in any case, I really enjoy everything you do, Seal. Thank you so much for the resource library and all your webinars and your podcasts. I really enjoy them.
My business started about the same time that Seal's podcast started. What her podcast meant to me was that this is an industry worth digging into and worth learning more about. This is an industry that can be lucrative, and it can also be anything that you want it to be. I was so thankful to listening to Seal's podcast at the beginning of my career into this industry, and I have made a wonderful friend with her since then, and I'm so thankful for it.
Congratulations, Seal, for this very impressive milestone of 500 podcasts. This is Heather Taylor in Connecticut. Through your interviews, I have learned about so many different folks and styles of workroom professionals located around this country. Working alone can fester doubt and insecurities, but listening to the backstories of other sewers of either small one-person workrooms or larger ones, I came to find I was not the only one with growth spurts, and I'm doing pretty well, or at least I shouldn't take myself too seriously. There's that one special episode I remember the most, and because it was rebroadcast recently with Kevin Keiss. The first time, like 3 or 4 years ago, I heard them talk together, giggle, and hear his personal background, I knew right there and then I would enjoy his company too when we attended the upholstery meetup tour with Kim Shagnon. Then in his memory, I listened to it again in November, and honestly, I sobbed, I laughed, because I appreciated my community so much more. What a clever, industrious hoot he really, really was. Sharing the successes and the problems of this trade with genuine openness is honestly the glue to our community. No matter the years you've been sewing, size of your space, client capacity, or just starting out and want to know if this trade is as wonderful as we say it is. Listening to a moment of conversation between colleagues is cathartic. These conversations reveal that we're not alone, and at the same time, our world is expanded to include so many other interesting and clever people. Thank you, Seal, and I look forward to 500 more.
Congratulations, Seal, on the 500th episode. It's Elaine from the Pretty Petite Chose workshop in France. When I listen to the So Much More podcast, I feel as though I have a workroom companion, and it always gives me a little boost of morale, whatever way I'm feeling. I really enjoy hearing the different accents from all over, which makes me realize that there are dear fellow soft furnishing companions all over the world. Thank you, Seal.
Hi, this is Kim from Indiana, and congratulations on your 500th podcast episode. Thank you so much for letting me spend time with you and to get to know my colleagues through the podcast. You and your guests have shared so many great business tips, inspiring stories, and smart strategies, but the biggest thing for me has been the sense of connection. I went from feeling clunky and kind of alone in my business to feeling like I'm part of a bigger community of like-minded people. There's such a familiar thread in how we all found our way to working creatively with our hands and hearts. And I'm often surprised to see parts of myself in people I really admire and honestly feel a little intimidated by because of their talent and accomplishments. Hearing that they're endearingly human with similar struggles and small wins makes me feel connected and in really good company. Again, congratulations on the 500 episodes. I'm so excited for many more.
This is Nancy Hogan from Rochester, New York, and I just want to thank you, Seal, and congratulate you on your 500th episode of the So Much More podcast. What a huge accomplishment. It has been so great to hear about everyone's journey and to where they are today. Thank you again for all you do and all you have done for our industry. I am so appreciative and grateful. Congratulations, Seal.
500 episodes. That is truly amazing, Seal. I have been a fan from day one, and I especially like that I can listen at any time to one of your fabulous guests. I have been encouraged and enlightened by the personal and business experiences your guests share. To have had the honor of being a guest myself includes me in that very special circle. So for that, thank you, thank you, thank you. Wishing you continued success and cheers to another 500 awesome stories. With much love, Irene Hurley.
Hi, this is Betsy. Just wanted to share what had changed after listening to the podcast. Mostly that I'm not alone, and there are a lot of people out there doing what I do in plenty of different ways. It's encouraging to have colleagues all over the country and multiple countries, and that are learning new things. And it's encouraging to know that there's a bunch of us out there doing the same thing.
Hi, Seal. This is Kate Winton from Kate Winton Designs. 500 podcasts. That is simply amazing. And I just want to say thank you for doing that for me and for everybody else in the industry. Years ago, I listened to a podcast from Rosemary Gardner, and she was working with
a designer. And because of that, I was new and I contacted Rosemary and she became my mentor. And I am so blessed to have her in my life and to have you in my life and everybody in the workroom industry. It's a great, great industry. And thank you again for allowing us to be a part of your podcast.
It's hard for me to pick one particular episode that I got the most out of or I learned something from. I learn a lot from every episode I listen to. And a favorite time for me to listen is when I'm traveling to and from an install, especially when it's an hour away. And I don't feel guilty. I'm learning something as I'm listening to one of your podcasts. It's always great. Thank you so much and keep doing what you're doing.
Hi, Seal. Congratulations on 500 episodes. This is Rosemary Garner. I'm so excited for you. I have learned so much. There would be so many things that I would be able to say. But the thing that really sticks out to me is early on when you interviewed Sarah O'Neill and she talked about her anxiety. And it changed so much for me. It allowed me to kind of acknowledge my own anxiety about work. Luckily, it was only about work. It wasn't about life or finances or anything. It was about work, and it allowed me to understand that perhaps I'm not the only one going through that, and actually to get a little bit of help. So that was, besides everything I've learned about fabrication and business, that is the one that sticks out to me that really impacted me and my business. Thanks for everything, Seal. Bye.
I could not possibly have reached 500 episodes if it was not for the support and help of the sponsors who allow me to bring the podcast to you each week. So a very special thank you to my sponsors. The sponsors of the So Much More podcast allow me to bring guests to you each week. And without them, I couldn't do it. I'm pleased as the owner of the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library that I can use the library to help sponsor the podcast as well. The library hosts the industry's largest curated collection of educational resources for the custom home furnishings professional. Membership to the library gives you access to a wealth of downloadable reference materials, videos, live events, as well as a community of support to help you develop your design, sales, and fabrication skills, and to grow or start a business. Join the library today at csfrl.org. The Workroom Channel is the premier online training provider for professional fabrication skills. Go to theworkroomchannel.com to browse the selection of anytime access courses created by industry experts. Watch detailed demonstration videos, download companion materials, and participate in private course discussion boards with your instructor and classmates from around the world. Start your course path today at theworkroomchannel.com. Education, networking, visibility, and industry discounts are just a few of the benefits that are offered to members of the Window Covering Association of America. The WCAA is the only national nonprofit trade association that's dedicated to the window coverings industry and the dealers, decorators, workrooms, designers, and installers that make up our membership. The library is a gold-level sponsor of the WCAA. Join today at WCAA.org. WCAA, where you are never in business alone. Discover Klimaka Studios, where innovation meets exceptional design. Klimaka fabric and wallpaper collections are inspired by the original works of collaborating artists and developed with the understanding of how fabrics are manipulated into exquisite soft home furnishings. Workroom businesses enjoy exclusive access to engineered designs and best trade pricing. From clever layouts to classic linen prints, Klamaka Studios delivers the quality and consistency that your business demands. And Klamaka's reliable, on-time delivery keeps your projects running smoothly. Go to klamakastudios.com for swatches and trade account information. Klamaka Studios, for the joy and profit of workrooms. Listening to all those messages together, I was just struck by how often people spoke about legitimacy, connection, resilience. I heard it in the voice recordings, and I hear it in person. The realization that someone's sewing or upholstery work is not just a side project. It is part of a real profession with a name, a network, and opportunities for growth. Some of you talked about the relief of finding colleagues, friends, and even mentors through this show. Several of you tracked down local makers you discovered here and formed friendships that ease the loneliness of working alone. And throughout the messages, there were reminders of courage, mantras to stay not defeated, but determined, stories of overcoming bookkeeping struggles or embracing changes after family decisions, and honest reflections on balancing business with life and health. I heard over and over that hearing candid conversations on this podcast gave you permission to face your own challenges and to celebrate your successes. Before I close out the podcast today, I want to read part of an email from Sharon in Virginia, who couldn't leave a voicemail but wanted to share her reflections. Sharon wrote that my year-end wrap-up conversation with Michelle Williams gave her a lot to think about. We talked about slowing down and preparing for retirement and questions like, do I slow down now? If not, when? How do I prepare my mind for some type of retirement? Sharon said she'll be thinking about those questions all year, which, Sharon, I'm guessing means you're not retiring this year. It resonated because, as she pointed out, most of the workrooms I interview are in growth mode and ramping up their businesses. Our conversation about pacing ourselves provide a different, equally important perspective. And I love that I get to do that and talk with people in different stages of their businesses. Sharon also shared some of her favorite episodes and moments. She loves anything that I did with Michelle Williams or Jeanelle Dech and still laughs about the story of Jeanelle and the Girl Scout cookies. I'll put a link to that episode in the show notes. She enjoyed the book discussions that Michelle and I have done. She loved the episode with Susie Darawala on moving around to different parts of the country. The interview with Cynthia Blaskacek, who talked about having a little wobble, and Rosemary Garner about moving to a new space. But she also mentioned how much she loved some of the quotes from the podcast. She loved the answer that Freddie Graves gave when I asked her what her favorite thing to make was. Freddie's answer was money. And that still makes me laugh out loud to this day. Sharon loved how Ragna Smith explains how she handles mistakes. And that was, I make them again just to make sure that it was a mistake. And that one made me laugh out loud. One of the most important things that Sharon has taken from the podcast were the wise words from Kevin Keyes. Don't die with a song in your heart. Sharon suggested that Kevin's line would make a fitting sign off for this milestone episode, and I could not agree more. So here's my reflection on all of this. We have built more than a podcast together, and I mean that word together specifically. I could have recorded some podcasts, but if you hadn't listened or responded or replied or liked it or shared it, it would have stopped a long time ago. So together, we've built a living archive of stories, advice, laughter, and empathy. Those of you who have been guests on the podcast have shared your personal stories with the listeners. And those of you who have been listeners have shared how the show helped you recognize the legitimacy of your work, find companionship in a sometimes lonely trade, and tackle bookkeeping, finance, business challenges, even completely different seasons of life. I am truly honored and grateful for every voice, every email, and every silent listener who is part of this circle. Closing out, I do want to leave you with Kevin's reminder. Don't die with a song in your heart. If there's something you want to try, a story you want to tell, or a change you need to make, let's encourage each other to do it. I want to thank you for listening to my 500 episodes, and here's to many more conversations, lessons, and songs to come. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.